This here is one of the most impressive little SUVs on the market. Shame it's now one of the more expensive small SUVs that you can buy. Stay tuned, you're going to learn all about it in this review. G'day, I'm Matt. This here is the Skoda Kamiq, and in this review I'm going to tell you whether it's going to be the right car for you. If you have a pretty decent budget for a very small SUV, then it could be. But this car also has a bunch of really interesting elements to it, some clever interior tricks too, and it's much more roomy than it looks like it should be. Stay tuned, there's a lot to get through. When the Skoda Kamiq first launched in Australia in 2020, it was basically the bargain SUV of the decade to that point anyway, and it was $27,990 drive away for the entry-level version. But now prices are way up. Maybe Skoda listened to all the praise for this little SUV, because now you're looking at almost $10,000 more to get into the entry-level version. Now the entry-level version is an automatic. This is it here. It's called the Style, and it's also called the 85 TSI or 1.0 TSI Style. So I'll tell you more about that in the engine section, but it comes pretty handsomely equipped for the entry-level version. You get full LED lighting outside, 18-inch alloy wheels, an electric boot, touchscreen media system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, nice fabric trim inside, and plenty of other niceties included. We're going to explore that in a little bit, but the next step up from this grade is called the Monte Carlo. It costs quite a bit more, and it has a bit more of a sporty appeal to it. It gets red interior treatment highlights, you get different wheels, you get a panoramic roof, and it does look quite sporty if you ask me. Above the Monte Carlo is the signature version. Now both it and that Monte Carlo get a bigger engine as well. I'll tell you more about that in a sec. But the signature is basically the luxury spec version. It comes with heated front and second row window seats. You also get driver's seat electric adjustment and leather seat trim as well. If you're okay with spending, let's say, $40,000 or so on a little SUV like this, then there are some really good alternatives available to you. Some of them much more affordable, and even more affordable than this base model Kamiq, including the Ford Puma, which has a few different variants available, and I actually think that it's a really impressively packaged and punchy little car. It's a lot of fun to drive, so is this, but maybe the Puma's just a little bit more fun, and I hopefully will be doing a review on that car very soon. There's an electric version coming as well in 2024, so that'll make things interesting. It might not be as affordable as it once was. If your budget's a little bit healthier, then maybe you want to be considering the Peugeot 2008. It is a very attractive little car. It's got one of the nicest interiors, but also one of the most polarizing interiors when it comes to the design. It's got the Peugeot iCockpit setup. Check out my 308 review to see why that might not be right for you. But it's also a pretty expensive little SUV, but it's rare. You'll be the only one on your street who has one, there's no doubt about that. And if you want something that's a bit more mainstream, and maybe you want something that's hybrid, then you should probably be checking out a Toyota Yaris Cross. It offers pretty good practicality, maybe not as smart and clever as this car, but it also comes with hybrid technology, as I mentioned. And there's a bunch of different variants available, starting from a lot lower price tag than this one, and topping out at about 40 grand. So it might be right for you if your budget's a bit tighter. To me, the Skoda Kamiq looks more substantial than it actually is. It's just over 4.2 meters in length, which makes it one of the more parkable small SUVs in the segment. If you live urban, it could be a really good option for you because it's not intimidating whatsoever. It's got a massive back seat, which I'm going to show you soon. It's also got a pretty big boot. Let's have a look. Even this base model version of the Skoda Kamiq comes with an electric boot, which is nice, and so is the amount of boot space you've got available to you. 400 litres of cargo capacity is what you'll find in here. It's a nice boxy shape. You can fit a pram and some shopping bags, or a fair few suitcases actually, because it's deep as well. There's a bit of a drop off over this ledge here. Now, the other cool thing about the boot is that it's got a reversible mat, so it's rubber on one side, carpet on the other side, which is very handy if you are putting yuck things in the boot. And there's also a space saver spare wheel under the boot floor, which is a good thing to have. Now, other smart things in the boot of the Skoda Kamiq include these shopping bag hooks, which you can just hang your bags off if you need a bit more space, or if you don't want your milk to fall out like it always does. And there's some other little storage caddies on either side. They come out as well. So that's kind of nice. It's got the usual Skoda sensibility to the back end. I don't think there are many other small SUVs at the entry-level grade that feel as nice or as premium or as plush as the Skoda Kamiq does. Not at this price point anyway, and it does really have a nice vibe to this cabin. I love this seat trim. I love the fact that it isn't just plain black like so many other cheaper SUVs are. There's a mix of materials on these seats. I love the copper trimming on the edges. The copper actually finds itself up onto the doors and dash as well. And maybe that's a Cupra influence, because I don't remember the early versions of this car having copper trimming, but I think it's a nice touch. There's also some nice touches when it comes to technology. You've got this touchscreen media system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto here. It does have a volume knob and a tuning knob, and I like that. It's got buttons down the sides of the screen as well, which I do appreciate. What I don't love as much is that you have to press a button down here to adjust the fan controls on the screen. So there are temperature dials down here, which you can adjust individually. They're dual zone climate control. And there's demister buttons down there, but if you want to do something like turn on the recirculating air, or you want to adjust the fan speed, you have to press a button there and then through the screen. It can be a bit tedious if you like to adjust those elements of the air conditioning. There's also a digital screen in front of the driver. It's a standard digital screen. All Kamiqs come with it, so that's a nice touch in this part of the market. And I like that it's very easy to get used to. You know, there's a few different menus and things on the screen. You've got your trip computer, you've got digital speedo, that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's pretty easy to get your head around, which is nice. When it comes to storage, the Kamiq could be better. Why I say that is because it's got a very, very small center storage bin here. It's a covered bin at least. There are some cup holders between the seats, but if you have a keep cup or you have a large cup, you're not going to fit it in there. So that might be something you want to keep in mind. There is a wireless phone charger here, oddly wireless phone charging, as well as 2 USB-C ports. I say oddly because it's not wireless Apple CarPlay. You still have to plug into the USB-C port there to connect to CarPlay or Android Auto. There's a glove box, as you would expect. It's quite a large size, actually. There's big door pockets, which is probably the best thing about the storage in the front seats anyway. And like all other Skodas, it comes with an umbrella in the driver's door, so you'll never be caught in the rain again. Let's check out the back seat. How's the space back here, people? I've got heaps of room. This seat is set for me at 182 centimeters or 6 foot tall. Look at that, heaps of knee room, fair bit of foot room, lots of headroom. So this car, despite being quite small, is actually very big inside. A bit like a Haval Jolion in that regard. I actually think that this is a nicer experience in the back seat than that car. A lot of that comes down to that trim material that I've already mentioned. These seats are comfortable and supportive, and it just feels a bit plush. I like the fact that there's actual nice fabric on the door arm rests as well. Often when you get into the back seat of a more affordable SUV, you might find that it's just plastic where you'd rest your elbows, but not here. However, there is no fold down armrest in this spec at least, so no cup holders in the back seat. There are map pockets on the backs of both seats. You've got decent sized door pockets as well. And thankfully you do get a pair of directional air vents and a pair of USB-C charge ports down here as well. If you've got kids, they're going to love the fact that they've got LED reading lights here. My daughter has been asking me to turn on those lights every time we go for a drive. You can do it from the front seat as well, which is nice. And there are ISOFIX points in the window seats and 3 top tether points as well. If you're going to have adults in the back, as I mentioned, you can get the Kamiq in the high-spec version with heated outboard seats, which is pretty nice for a little SUV like this. As I've already alluded to, there are two engine options available in the Skoda Kamiq range. This one right here is the small one, the 1 litre 85 TSI as it's called. You'll see the power and torque figures on your screen now. It's a 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine, and I actually think that it's a pretty characterful little thing. A bit gruff and grumbly though, so if you need more refinement or you want more refinement, then you're better off spending up on one of the top 2 specs with a 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and that is a much smoother and much more responsive engine with more power and torque as well. Now, all versions come with a 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission, and they are all front wheel drive, so that could make your decision for you. The Skoda Kamiq is a really nice little SUV to drive. For the most part, there are some things that maybe could be a little bit better, particularly if you're buying this 1 litre base model version, which has that 3-cylinder engine, as I mentioned, and it is just a little bit gruff and grumbly and a little bit too rumbly for probably some people's tastes, especially when you're spending this much money on a little SUV. It is, well, a bit unrefined at times. It does have this rumble to it, as you can probably hear in the background. There is just a bit of a lumpy sort of sound going on there, and I don't mind that. I actually like the character of 3-cylinder engines. They are inherently unbalanced, and I like that. I like that they feel a bit more mechanical, I guess, but I can totally understand why you would appreciate the 4-cylinder version of this car more if you do like refinement and you do like smooth driving, because this could be a little bit smoother. Some of that comes down to the fact that it does have some turbo lag from a standstill. It's got a dual clutch automatic transmission. It's also got engine stop start tech. So for example, if I just come up to a stop here at this roundabout, take off, and we're away. You get a little bit of tire spin at times as well, especially if the surface is wet below, as it is today. So those elements could be better, but I love the fact that it does have enough power and torque in this application, and there is a really smart shifting transmission here. It's a 7-speed dual clutch auto, and it's quick and clever, apart from that slow away from the start sort of behavior, which is not uncommon. When it comes to the other elements of the drive experience, it is a very nice car to live with. It's got super light but still accurate steering. So sometimes steering can be really light and not have that much feel or accuracy, but this is nice and light, but it's also quite direct. So it means that it doesn't take much turn of the wheel for it to change direction for you, which is nice. The ride is a little bit firm. It can be a little bit lumpy and bumpy and bouncy, but I actually think that it has a real nice connected feel to the road, which some other SUVs at this sort of price point don't offer. All in all, I think this is one of the better small SUVs to drive, definitely better than a lot of those other really cheap SUVs out there, and certainly as good as you'll get at this sort of money. Now let's talk efficiency. The entry-level 3-cylinder version of this car has a claimed official combined cycle fuel consumption figure of 5 litres per 100 Ks, which is very, very impressive. If you choose the 4-cylinder Kamiq, the fuel consumption is a little higher. 5.6 litres per 100 Ks is the official combined cycle figure. And if you're wondering what I've seen across a mix of driving in this 85 TSI 1 litre base model car, you'll see it on your screen now. I was okay with that. The Skoda Kamiq managed a 5-star ANCAP safety rating in 2019, and it does have a bunch of active safety technology that you would expect to achieve that kind of maximum rating, including autonomous emergency braking, lane keeping assistance, blind spot monitoring, and rear cross traffic alert, all standard across all grades. Now, the AEB system has pedestrian and cyclist detection, but it doesn't have junction detection like some newer models do. And there is something called maneuver braking, which will jam on the brakes if it thinks you're going to reverse into an obstacle, but it doesn't have pedestrian detection for the rear AEB system. You also get a reversing camera and rear parking sensors as standard. If you buy the top spec model, you get front parking sensors and an auto parking system too. When it comes to airbags, you've got dual front, front side, full-length curtain and driver's knee coverage, but there is no front center airbag like some other new models have. Just peeling off this 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty sticker, because now it's a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty for Skoda products in Australia, which does match some of the best warranty programs that you can get in this market. You know, like Kia and SsangYong and MG, those sorts of brands have 7 years unlimited Ks. Skoda does too now, so I'm just gonna peel that off. There's also the option of a 7-year cap price servicing plan and a 5-year cap price servicing plan. They're prepay plans, so you have to pay ahead of time, but the average cost over those periods of duration is actually pretty impressive for a European small SUV. There's also roadside assist included. You'll see how long on your screen too. So the ownership aspect is pretty well taken care of when it comes to the Kamiq. I reckon the Skoda Kamiq is one of the most impressive small SUVs on the market right now. If you can justify the cost, you're going to be getting a very, very nice little SUV to live with. However, I think most people will probably appreciate the 1.5 litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol more than this 3-cylinder version, although I actually like the 3-pot myself. Would you choose a Kamiq? Do you already own one? I'd love to hear from you if you do, and if you want to see any other small SUV reviews, let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.